You motherfucker too. It's your boy Rallo Jenkins again. Just wanna talk about this past weekend's fights real quick. I'm gonna start with one time. I like Keith Thurman. He showed me a lot in this fight. I think he showed me more in this one fight that went to decision than all of the fights that he had knockouts in. I think that we always knew that he had pretty decent power. I think there was no question about that. I think that he answered the other questions whereas could he go 12 rounds? Could he outbox, somebody? And he outboxed a crude, plotting brawler, I think he showed mass versatility in this fight. He showed patience and poise. And, shit. If you ask me, the sky's the limit for the young fella. Now, I know I'm finna ruffle some feathers and shit like that, but I think that, I'm sure it won't happen, but he should fight Floyd Mayweather. People gonna say, hell, fuck no. I know that's what a bunch of folks are saying. He ain't did shit, blah, 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 this, that, and the third, whatever. But let's take Robert Guerrero's resume. Outside of Andre Berto, who did fucking Robert Guerrero really beat? And Victor Ortiz, and hell, Miguel Cotto for that matter. He beat Antonio Margarito. Antonio Margarito hadn't won a fight since 2008, or at least a significant win. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't even name the one dude that he beat since 2008. Come on. But if we look at it subjectively, Keith Thurman could fight Berto or Ortiz or maybe even Guerrero after this fight, and that would legitimize what I just said. Fucking Victor Ortiz. Who the fuck did Victor Ortiz beat except for Andre Berto? And we probably seen more flaws in that win than we did in any of the losses that he had. So, if Thurman was to beat a Berto or an Ortiz or a Guerrero or even an Alexander, that would absolutely legitimize what I just said based on the opponents that have been picked by Floyd Mayweather in his last 5 or 6 fights. So, not saying that he'll beat Floyd. I'm just saying that out of everybody we can name at 147 pounds, Floyd Mayweather may be the only fighter that I might pick over Keith Thurman right now. If I had to predict Keith Thurman against anybody at 147 pounds, including top-ranked fighters, there's not many that I would pick over Keith Thurman. That being my point, why not? And on to the main event. Congratulations to the old man for doing it again. I actually thought that Father Time would kind of catch him this time, but I can see Bernard Hopkins slowed down, and he's fighting more with his brain than he is with his body. And the sad part about it is these fucking young fighters play right into his hands. And see, the way to beat Bernard Hopkins is to fight that same slow, lethargic kind of a style, because you can't make Bernard Hopkins fight. That's not gonna happen. You're not gonna make him brawl. You're not gonna get him into a slugfest. That's just not gonna happen. But what you can do with Bernard Hopkins is you can be faster than him. You can be stronger than him. You can keep him on the end of your punches. And you can move as good as him if you're a younger fighter such as Tavares Cloud. But what Tavares Cloud did was he was stuck in the mind frame of trying to make it a scrap, trying to make it a fight. And Bernard Hopkins is just not going to do that. I mean, I haven't seen that happen probably ever in Bernard Hopkins' career. So, I mean, if he is slugging and brawling with a dude, it's because he knows he's going to get the better of it. So, you just can't make Bernard Hopkins do that. Now, the reason that Chad Dawson was able to dominate Bernard Hopkins in the fashion that he was is because he fights a similar style. He's not trying to brawl or get into a slugfest. So he fights that same lethargic, slow-paced, I'm only going to punch when I'm ready to punch type of style. And if you're younger, quicker, you got a long reach, those are the things that Bernard Hopkins can't overcome based on that style. So that's why Chad Dawson was able to beat him, and I think that Chad Dawson with his style would beat Bernard Hopkins every time they fought. But that young bull charging in type of fighter, Bernard Hopkins will beat him, just because he knows how to move without running, and he knows how to neutralize a guy who wants to just land heavy blows. He knows how to do that. So, if you got Tavares Clouds out here, Bernard Hopkins can beat him, but those European guys, he gonna have a tough time with them because they are able to fight more similar to a Chad Dawson style, which I think Bernard Hopkins will have problems with. See, and it's not that Bernard Hopkins is knocking motherfuckers out or hitting people so hard. What he does is he punches when he wants to punch. And when he's not ready to punch, he just stays out of range. You don't get time to counter or nothing like that. So what these young fighters have to do is do the same thing. Stay out of range. Stay the fuck out the way until you're ready to punch. When you're ready to punch, you get a couple punches off. It don't matter whether you hit him on the jaw or on the head or you land flush to the body. Just get off a couple punches and get the fuck out the way. And some of these young fighters just don't understand that concept. Certain fighters you're just not going to be able to make brawl. It's just not going to happen. A fight that I would like to see is Cloud and Pascal. I think that their styles are more suited for each other, and I think that would be a nice action-packed fight. But congratulations to the old man B-Hop, doing his thing once again, making history. Can't be mad at that. But I would like to see the old guy retire, man. I just would like to see that shit happen. Because what I don't want to see is for him to really get old in the ring and to really get caught by that shot, kind of like Roy Jones did. Bam. But, defensively, Bernard Hopkins has been as good or better than Floyd Mayweather in the fact that you haven't seen Bernard Hopkins take punishment. You know what I mean? And I know what people are going to say, oh man, he got dropped by Pascal or he got dropped by Calzaghe or whatever the case may be. But that may have happened, but he didn't get beat up in either one of those fights is the point. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he's had more fights. Hell, he's fucking 12 years older than Floyd Mayweather. So, it's still time for the wrong shit to happen. But up until the age of 48 and all the fights that he's had, he hasn't really gotten beaten up. I mean, shit, it's hard to argue with that. And he can teach these young fighters some shit defensively. But, I actually would like to see him retire. I just think that he's done enough in the sport. And I mean, if you just want to keep making money, fuck, keep going then. And one other thing that I like to touch on, since I'm making a vid anyway, is I know that, and we all do this, when we go look at a fighter, who that fighter beat, then we look at who that fighter he beat, the people that they beat or lost to. And BoxRec is okay. Don't get it twisted, you know what I'm saying? I'll refer to BoxRec. But in order to really know what the fuck is going on, you gotta go and read about that fighter and what was going on at that time. Because 20 years from now, when some of y'all gotta tell y'all kids about, from 2005 to 2015 in boxing, one of the first topics that'll always pop up is, why Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao didn't fight. Why Adrian Broner and Brandon Rios didn't fight. Why this dude and this dude didn't fight. The generation of the didn't fights. The fights that didn't happen in boxing. And I don't know how it'll be played out when the stories get told 15, 20, 30 years from now. But if you read about how shit was back in the day, I read a couple of biographies, autobiographies on some boxers, and shit was a lot different, shit has changed so much, toward the Ali era. Ali was the first fighter really who won over crowds without knocking motherfuckers out. And sadly enough to say though is he didn't get his popularity before getting his famous knockouts. They didn't continue though, he didn't continue knocking people out. But in some of his biggest fights, he did get knockouts. The third fight with Joe Frazier, the Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman, Sonny Liston, So most of his biggest fights did end in knockouts. But he was still more of the, he changed the game. Because back in the day, these guys winning decisions and shit, that shit didn't go over well with the public. If you were knocking a motherfucker out, they ain't really want to fuck with you. This going 12 round shit, it just wasn't where it was at. And even still to this day, no matter what the fuck people want to say, you know what I'm saying? Like these Bernard Hopkins fucking dick riders or Floyd Mayweather dick riders or whatever, who talk about boxing this and boxing that. Nothing captivates the public, hardcore boxing fans and casual boxing fans together, like a knockout. You know what I'm saying? Like Juan Manuel Marquez was able to nullify the whole 36 rounds that he went with Manny Pacquiao prior to the fourth fight with one knockout. You know what I'm saying? The same way that Pacquiao burst on the scene. And because he became so popular, because he was knocking out motherfuckers that it took Floyd Mayweather to, you know what I'm saying, a few rounds or the distance to go with. That's what boosted him to his popularity. Mike Tyson back in the 80s, man, he was knocking everybody out. That's why he became such a sensation. He didn't win more fights or beat better opponents that other fighters were doing, but he was knocking motherfuckers out. That was the difference between his career and, say, Evander Holyfield. Lennox Lewis, the Klitschko's, you know. I mean, even though they get knockouts, they're long and drawn out, and you know what I'm saying? But whenever a guy knocks out another guy, it's different. You know, Devin Alexander, he was, you know, this up and coming guy, and then all of a sudden he knocks out Juan Urango, and he's like this world beater and shit. You know what I'm saying? Just think if Timothy Bradley had knocked out Pacquiao. Timothy Bradley hasn't had many knockouts at all. And that's why his popularity isn't anywhere near what it probably should be. Floyd Mayweather did get a few signature knockouts in his career. Ricky Hatton, Diego Corrales. You know, he had a couple of knockouts at lower level opponents. But the one that really put him on the map was Arturo Gatti. Nothing captivates a crowd like a knockout. Period. Point blank, period. You know? Brandon Rios. I mean, shit, the boy hasn't shown the ability to be able to box a lick, but he's knocking motherfuckers out. There ain't no question about his wins. You know what I'm saying? There ain't no question about most of the fights that he wins, because niggas ain't getting up after that, you know what I'm saying, before that 10 count. So, with that, boxing has changed with the way that we perceive, you know, people like to say, oh, call it the sweet science or whatever. Even back then, it was still the sweet science. It was the ability to knock a motherfucker out. It was still the sweet science. There was some science that was very sweet in being able to hit a motherfucker, put his ass on the canvas, and keep him there long enough that the referee could count to 10. There was some sweet science in that shit. So, people call it the sweet science, you know, for being able to box 12 rounds. That shit just, it wasn't what was popping back in the day. And it's not popping now. You know what I'm saying? Because let's just say with this fight in May, Robert Guerrero and Floyd Mayweather, they have this close ass fight. It's not gonna do shit for Floyd Mayweather's career to go 12 rounds with Robert Guerrero, especially if the fight is close. It may help Guerrero a little bit. But let's say Guerrero somehow pulls off a close split decision. And you know, you make for a rematch, right? It'll be unprecedented due to the fact that Floyd Mayweather has never lost a decision. But it'll be a whole completely, totally different story if somehow, some way, we watching a fight and we watching the referee count to 10 standing over Floyd Mayweather. That will put Robert Guerrero in the hemisphere that a close split decision would never do. Not even close. It would be something unprecedented. Some shit that he may not even want if it was to happen. And that's always been boxing. I don't even think it's just boxing. I think it's something in human nature. You know what I'm saying? That it is in us, ingrained in us. That shit will always be better than a 12-round decision. Always. No matter what. It'll always be better than a 12-round decision. So, in that, I think about how we compare fighters of today versus fighters of years ago. You know, even in the 80s, you know, and in the, you know, the Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns. That shit looked nothing like, you know, De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather mega fight at welterweight or in that vicinity. Bernard Hopkins and Kelly Pavlik. I mean, that fucking fight was nothing like Kelly Pavlik versus Jermaine Taylor. You know what I mean? And even though, Bernard Hopkins gained accolades from that, it was nothing compared to the accolades that Kelly Pavlik got when he knocked out Jermaine Taylor. You know what I'm saying? It's not even comparable. And knockouts will always rule in boxing. Always, 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 always. So certain type of fighters will always have more appeal than other types of fighters. You know what I'm saying? So back when I started this video and I was talking about one time has shown me something, shown abilities that I haven't seen in previous opponents or people at the top of the chain at 147. You know what I mean? I think that he's better than Andre Berto. I think that he's better than Victor Ortiz. I think that he's better than Robert Guerrero. And I would pick him to beat any of those fighters. And I would pick him actually to knock out some of those guys. I was watching that fight with Zavik, and I just couldn't believe that the dude fucking was staying up right the whole 12 rounds. But then again, they said that the dude ain't never sat down in a fight yet. So some guys just got that hard ass chin, Some guys just like that. So I can't, maybe he's just a guy you just not gonna knock out, Maybe that's just the case. So I'm looking for Keith Thurman to do some really great things soon, because boxing kind of needs an exciting guy like him. He does good interviews, you know what I'm saying? He's a decent trash talker, you know what I'm saying? He talks his shit, he produces in the ring, and he's a good fresh face in the sport, I believe, But I'm gonna quit rambling on to the gym, work off some of these beers so I can fucking drink some more. For the beer drinkers, man, I'm from Michigan. Michigan is one of the best beer states there is. We got a brewery called Founders, and they make some pretty fucking explosive beers. And I mean like beers where, like, I had one yesterday. Me and my girl split one. That was from last year, batch called Kentucky Breakfast Stout. And splitting one beer with her, me and her shared this beer. I had a buzz like a motherfucker, man. And I guess this shit just got more potent over time. You know what I'm saying? Because that was a beer that I bought this time last year, and it aged pretty well. The ingredients came together a little more, and the vanilla stood out a little bit more than the coffee did. So I like that aspect. But man, that bitch packed a punch, because I was buzzing like a motherfucker after one. But I'm through here. I recommend everybody drink some good beer when they watch a good fight.